Sarah Martinez walked into the police academy training hall on a crisp Monday morning, her small frame barely reaching 5 feet 2 inches. At 22 years old, she carried herself with quiet confidence, but to everyone else in the room, she looked like someone who had wandered into the wrong building. The other recruits were mostly tall, muscular men who had played football in college or had military backgrounds. Sarah had none of that. She had grown up in a small town in Arizona, where her father owned a small auto repair shop. Her mother worked as a nurse at the local hospital. They were hard-working people who taught Sarah the value of determination and never giving up. But when Sarah announced she wanted to become a police officer, even her own parents had their doubts. "Are you sure about this, honey?" her mother had asked, worry lines creasing her forehead. "It's a dangerous job, and you're so—" She paused, searching for the right words. "Small?" Sarah had finished with a smile. "Mom, I've been thinking about this for years. I want to help people. I want to make a difference." Her father had been more direct. "Sarah, those criminals out there won't go easy on you just because you're a woman. You need to be realistic about what you're getting into." But Sarah had made up her mind. She had saved money from her part-time job at the local diner and applied to the state police academy. When her acceptance letter arrived, she felt a mix of excitement and nervous energy. This was her chance to prove that size didn't matter when you had heart and determination. The first day at the academy was overwhelming. Drill Sergeant Murphy, a massive man with arms like tree trunks and a voice that could shake windows, looked at the new recruits lined up in the gymnasium. His eyes stopped on Sarah, and she could see the skepticism written all over his face. "Listen up, rookies," Murphy bellowed. "This academy will push you to your limits and beyond. Some of you will make it, and some of you will wash out. That's just how it works." His gaze lingered on Sarah. This isn't a game. Real police officers face real dangers every single day. The other recruits stole glances at Sarah, and she could almost hear their thoughts. What was this tiny woman doing here? Would she slow down their training? Could she even handle the physical requirements? During the first week, Sarah struggled with some of the physical tests. She couldn't do as many push-ups as the men, and she was slower on the obstacle course. But what surprised everyone was her performance in the academic portions. She scored at the top of every written exam, memorized procedures faster than anyone else, and showed exceptional problem-solving skills during scenario training. "She's smart. I'll give her that," Sarah overheard one recruit, Jake Thompson, saying to his friend during lunch. "But being smart won't help when you're facing a 200-pound criminal who wants to hurt you." Sarah pretended not to hear, but the words stung. She knew she had to prove herself physically, not just mentally. That evening, she stayed late at the academy gym, working on her fitness. She ran extra miles, practiced defensive techniques, and studied martial arts videos on her phone. What the other recruits didn't know was that Sarah had a secret. When she was 12 years old, her family had moved temporarily to California while her father helped his brother set up a new auto shop. During those 6 months, Sarah had discovered a small martial arts studio near their apartment. The instructor, Master Chen, was an elderly Chinese man who taught traditional kung fu. Sarah had been fascinated by the graceful movements and the philosophy behind the art. Master Chen had taken her under his wing, teaching her that true strength came from within, not from physical size. He showed her how to use an opponent's force against them, how to move with speed and precision, and how timing mattered more than raw power. "Small stone can move big mountain," Master Chen would say in his accented English, "if stone knows exactly where to hit." When Sarah's family moved back to Arizona, she continued practicing the techniques Master Chen had taught her. She found online videos and books, dedicating herself to the art even though she had no formal training partners. She practiced forms in her backyard, worked on her flexibility and balance, and studied the principles of leverage and momentum. But Sarah had never told anyone about her martial arts background. She was naturally modest and didn't want to seem like she was bragging. Besides, she wasn't sure if her self-taught skills would actually work in a real confrontation. As the weeks passed at the academy, the physical training became more intense. The recruits learned basic self-defense techniques, handcuffing procedures, and how to handle resisting suspects. Sarah performed adequately in these exercises, but she didn't stand out. The instructors paired her with other smaller recruits or went easy on her during demonstration, which only reinforced everyone's perception that she was the weak link in the group. Officer Davis, one of the hand-to-hand combat instructors, was a former military policeman who believed in tough training. He was fair but demanding, pushing every recruit to their limits. During one particularly challenging session, he demonstrated a takedown technique on Jake Thompson, the biggest recruit in the class. The key, Officer Davis explained as he put Jake in a control hold, is not to fight strength with strength. You use proper technique, leverage, and positioning. He looked around the room. Who wants to try this on Thompson? Several hands went up, but Davis pointed to Sarah. Martinez, you're up. The room fell silent. Jake Thompson was 6 feet tall and weighed at least 200 pounds. He had played defensive tackle in college and looked like he could bench press a small car. Sarah stood up slowly, feeling every pair of eyes in the room on her. Officer Davis, Jake said with a nervous laugh, maybe we should start with someone closer to my size. I don't want to accidentally hurt her. Thompson, if Martinez is going to be a police officer, she needs to be able to handle suspects of all sizes, Davis replied firmly. And Martinez needs to learn these techniques properly. Set up the scenario. Sarah walked to the center of the mat, her heart pounding. She could hear whispers from the other recruits. This was going to be embarrassing. Jake was being nice about it, but everyone expected her to fail miserably. Jake took his position as the resistant suspect, and Sarah approached as if she were trying to arrest him. As she reached for his arm to begin the takedown technique they had just learned, Jake instinctively pulled away, using his natural strength advantage. In that moment, something clicked in Sarah's mind. All those hours practicing in her backyard, all of Master Chen's lessons about using an opponent's energy against them, suddenly became crystal clear. Instead of fighting Jake's resistance, she flowed with it, redirecting his momentum and using his own strength to unbalance him. What happened next shocked everyone in the room. In one fluid motion, Sarah stepped in at the perfect angle, used Jake's forward momentum against him, and executed a takedown so smooth and precise that Jake found himself on his back on the mat before he even realized what had happened. The gymnasium fell completely silent. Jake lay there for a moment, blinking in confusion. Officer Davis stared at Sarah with raised eyebrows. The other recruits looked like they had just witnessed magic. "How did you—" Jake started to say as he got to his feet. "Good technique, Martinez," Officer Davis said, though there was surprise in his voice. "That was textbook execution." Sarah helped Jake up, her face flushed with adrenaline and embarrassment. "Sorry about that. You okay?" Jake nodded, rubbing his shoulder. "Yeah, I'm fine. That was impressive." But as the training session continued, Sarah could see the wheels turning in everyone's minds. The other recruits looked at her differently now. There was less dismissive glancing and more genuine curiosity. Officer Davis paired her with different partners, testing to see if her performance with Jake had been a fluke. It wasn't. Sarah consistently demonstrated superior technique, though she was careful not to show off too much. She was beginning to realize that her years of private practice had given her skills that even she hadn't fully appreciated. After class, Jake approached her in the parking lot. "Hey, Martinez, can I ask you something?" "Sure," Sarah replied, throwing her gym bag into her car. "Where did you learn to do that? That takedown was nothing like what we've been taught here." Sarah hesitated. She had kept her martial arts background secret for so long that it felt strange to talk about it. "I studied some martial arts when I was younger." Just basic stuff? That wasn't basic, Jake said with a shake of his head. I've been in plenty of fights and I've never been taken down that smoothly. You made it look easy. Sarah shrugged. I guess I got lucky with the timing. But luck had nothing to do with it, and they both knew it. As Sarah drove home that evening, she thought about Master Chen's words. When you ready, you will know. Your skill will show itself when needed. Maybe she was finally ready. The next few weeks brought new challenges at the academy. Word had spread about Sarah's takedown of Jake Thompson, and now everyone was watching her more closely. Some recruits were impressed and wanted to learn from her. Others seemed resentful, as if she had somehow cheated by not revealing her background earlier. Drill Sergeant Murphy called her into his office one afternoon. Martinez, he said, leaning back in his chair. I've been hearing interesting things about your performance in defensive tactics training. Sarah sat up straight. I hope I'm meeting the academy standards, sir. Oh, you're exceeding them, Murphy replied. But I'm curious about something. Your application didn't mention any martial arts training or combat sports experience? Sarah felt her cheeks burn. I didn't think it was relevant, sir. It was just something I did as a kid. Murphy studied her for a long moment. Martinez, if you have skills that could benefit your fellow officers and help you do your job better, that's not something to hide. It's something to be proud of. Yes, sir, I understand. Good. Because I'm thinking of entering some of our top recruits in an inter-academy competition next month. It's a chance to test skills against recruits from other training facilities in the region. He paused. I'd like you to consider participating. Sarah's heart skipped. What kind of competition, sir? Various challenges, physical fitness tests, scenario-based problem-solving, and yes, hand-to-hand combat demonstrations. Think you're up for it? The idea both excited and terrified her. Competing against recruits from other academies would mean facing people who didn't know her, who wouldn't underestimate her from the start. But it would also mean stepping fully into the spotlight, no more hiding her abilities. I'd be honored to represent our academy, sir, she said. Murphy smiled. Good. Start training hard, Martinez. And maybe it's time you stopped holding back in class. Your fellow recruits could learn something from you. As Sarah left the office, she felt a mixture of pride and anxiety. Her quiet days of flying under the radar were over. Now everyone would be watching to see what the small woman from Arizona could really do. That evening, she called her parents for the first time in weeks. How's the academy going, sweetheart? Her mother asked. It's challenging, but good, Sarah replied. Actually, I have some news. I've been selected to represent our academy in a regional competition. There was a pause on the other end of the line. That's wonderful, honey, her father said. We're proud of you. Are you sure you're ready for something like that? Her mother added, the worry clear in her voice. Sarah looked at herself in the mirror across her small apartment. The young woman staring back looked stronger than the one who had started at the academy months ago. Her shoulders were broader, her posture more confident, and there was something new in her eyes. A quiet certainty that she belonged exactly where she was. I'm ready, Mom, she said. I think I've been ready for longer than I realized. The weeks leading up to the inter-academy competition transformed Sarah's experience at the police academy completely. Word of her selection had spread through the entire facility, and suddenly, everyone wanted to know more about the quiet recruit who had somehow earned a spot representing their academy. Officer Davis approached her after a regular training session. Martinez, I want you to start working with me on advanced techniques. If you're going to compete against other academies, you need to be prepared for anything. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity, Sarah replied. Don't thank me yet, Davis said with a grin. I'm going to push you harder than you've ever been pushed before. The special training sessions began the next day. Davis had arranged for Sarah to work with some of the Academy's most experienced instructors, and even brought in guest experts from local law enforcement agencies. Each session focused on different aspects of police defensive tactics, but also incorporated more advanced martial arts principles. During one particularly intense session, Master Instructor Rodriguez, a former SWAT team leader, worked with Sarah on multiple attacker scenarios. In real police work, you might face more than one suspect at a time, Rodriguez explained. You need to learn how to manage distance, positioning, and timing against multiple opponents. He brought in 3 other instructors to simulate attackers. Your job is to avoid being surrounded, control the engagement distance, and neutralize the threats one at a time. Sarah nodded, understanding the theory, but nervous about putting it into practice against experienced fighters. As the exercise began, she found herself overwhelmed by the complexity of tracking multiple opponents while trying to execute defensive techniques. "Stop!" Rodriguez called out after Sarah got caught between 2 of the mock attackers. "What went wrong there, Martinez?" "I lost track of positioning," Sarah admitted. "I got focused on one opponent and didn't see the other one moving to flank me." Exactly. In martial arts, what principle governs fighting multiple opponents? Sarah thought back to her training with Master Chen. Never fight more than one person at a time. Use movement and positioning to isolate each opponent. Right. Show me. They reset the exercise. This time, Sarah approached it differently. Instead of engaging directly, she used her mobility to keep the mock attackers in a line, preventing them from surrounding her. When one moved to attack, she used footwork to position herself so that opponent blocked the others from reaching her immediately. The improvement was dramatic. Within minutes, Sarah was moving fluidly around the training area, engaging one mock attacker at a time while using distance and angles to control the entire encounter. "Much better," Rodriguez said as they concluded the session. "You have natural instincts for spatial awareness. That's not something that can be taught easily." Meanwhile, Sarah's regular academy classmates were also taking notice of her preparation. Jake Thompson had become one of her most supportive training partners, often staying after regular sessions to help her practice. "I still can't believe how you took me down that first time," Jake said one evening as they worked on grappling techniques. "Want to show me that move again?" Sarah demonstrated the technique slowly, explaining the principles behind it. "It's not really about the specific move," she said. "It's about feeling your opponent's energy and redirecting it. When you pulled away from me, you gave me momentum to work with." "That sounds almost philosophical," Jake said with a laugh. "I guess it is," Sarah replied. "My first instructor used to say that fighting was like dancing. You have to feel your partner's rhythm and work with it, not against it." Jake tried the technique himself, with limited success. "This is way harder than it looks when you do it." Other recruits began joining these informal training sessions. Maria Santos, one of the few other women in the program, was particularly interested in learning Sarah's techniques. "I've been struggling with the defensive tactics training," Maria admitted. "Most of these guys outweigh me by 50 pounds or more. I need to learn how to use technique instead of trying to overpower them." Sarah was happy to share what she knew, but she soon realized that teaching others was helping her understand her own abilities better. Explaining the principles forced her to think more deeply about what she was doing instinctively. "The key is timing," Sarah explained to Maria during one session. "Wait for your opponent to commit to a movement, then redirect that energy. Don't try to stop their force. Use it." As Maria practiced the technique, Sarah noticed something interesting. Her classmate was naturally athletic and picked up the movements quickly, but she was trying too hard to copy Sarah's exact motions instead of finding what worked for her own body type and style. "Don't try to fight like me," Sarah advised. "You're taller than I am, so your leverage points are different. Find what feels natural for your body." This realization was important for Sarah's own development. She began to understand that her martial arts background wasn't just about specific techniques. It was about developing a way of thinking about movement, balance, and energy that could be adapted to any situation. 2 weeks before the competition, Drill Sergeant Murphy called Sarah into his office again. "Martinez, I've got the details about the inter-academy competition," he said, handing her a thick packet of papers. "Take a look at this and let me know if you have any questions." Sarah studied the documents carefully. The competition included representatives from 12 different police academies across 3 states. There were multiple events: written examinations, physical fitness tests, scenario-based problem-solving, and combat demonstrations. The combat portion was what caught her attention most. Competitors would face a series of challenges designed to test their defensive tactics skills. The final event was described as a multiple opponent simulation, where each competitor would face several opponents in succession. "Sir, this multiple opponent event, how does it work exactly?" Sarah asked. Murphy leaned forward. "From what I understand, each competitor faces up to 5 opponents, one at a time but in rapid succession. The goal is to demonstrate control, technique, and stamina. It's not about knocking people out. It's about showing proper police defensive tactics under pressure." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. 5 opponents in a row would be a serious test of everything she had learned. "The other academies will be sending their best people," Murphy continued. "Some of these recruits are former military, college athletes, or have extensive martial arts backgrounds. You'll be representing not just our academy, but proving that skill and determination matter more than size or background." "I understand, sir. I won't let you down." "I know you won't, Martinez, but I want you to understand something else. You've already proven yourself here. Whatever happens at the competition, you've earned the respect of your instructors and classmates. Don't put unnecessary pressure on yourself." That evening, Sarah called Master Chen. She had kept in touch with him over the years, sending letters and occasionally calling to update him on her progress. He was now in his 80s and had retired from teaching, but his wisdom remained sharp. "Sarah, my young student," Master Chen said in his gentle voice. "You sound worried." "I have a big challenge coming up," Sarah explained. "I'm going to compete against other police recruits, including a test where I might face 5 opponents in a row." Master Chen was quiet for a moment. "Do you remember what I taught you about the mountain and the water?" Sarah smiled, remembering the old lesson. "Water doesn't fight the mountain. It finds a way around, through, or over. Eventually, water shapes the mountain." "Yes, you are like water, Sarah. You do not need to be stronger than mountain. You need to be wiser, more flexible, more patient. 5 opponents or 50 opponents, it does not matter if you flow like water." "But Master Chen, what if I'm not good enough? What if all my training isn't enough?" "Sarah," the old man said firmly, "you have been training for this moment your whole life. Not just the physical training, but the mental training, the discipline training, the character training. Trust in your preparation. Trust in yourself." After the call, Sarah felt calmer, but also more determined. She spent the remaining 2 weeks before the competition in intensive preparation. She worked with Officer Davis on specific scenarios she might face. She practiced forms and meditation to maintain mental clarity. She studied videos of police defensive tactics and analyzed different approaches to multiple opponent situations. The night before leaving for the competition, the entire academy held a send-off ceremony for their representatives. Sarah was one of 4 recruits selected to compete in various events. Drill Sergeant Murphy addressed the gathered students and instructors. "These 4 recruits represent the best of what our academy produces. They've shown dedication, skill, and character throughout their training." When he called Sarah's name, the applause was notably enthusiastic. Even recruits who had initially doubted her were now genuinely supportive. Jake Thompson stood up. "If anyone can show those other academies what we're made of, it's Martinez. She's taught all of us that heart and skill matter more than size." Maria Santos added, "Sarah's helped me improve more in the last month than I had in the previous 3 months. She doesn't just have great technique, she's a great teacher and teammate." As Sarah listened to her classmates' encouragement, she felt a warmth that had nothing to do with proving herself and everything to do with being part of something larger. She had found her place, not just as an individual fighter, but as part of a team. That night, Sarah lay in bed reviewing everything she had learned. The techniques, the principles, the mental preparation. But mostly, she thought about the journey that had brought her to this point. From a small-town girl who felt she had to prove herself, to a confident recruit who understood that her strength came from within. She thought about Master Chen's lessons about water and mountains. She thought about her parents' worried but proud support. She thought about her classmates who had gone from skepticism to genuine respect and friendship. Tomorrow, she would face the biggest test of her abilities yet. 5 opponents, one after another, with representatives from other academies watching and judging. But tonight, for the first time in months, Sarah felt completely ready. The competition venue was a large training facility that housed multiple academies for the regional event. As Sarah and her teammates arrived, she could see recruits from other academies warming up and preparing. Many of them were indeed larger and more physically imposing than she was. "Remember," Officer Davis said as they unloaded their gear, "you belong here. You earned your spot through performance, not politics or favoritism. Trust your training." Sarah nodded, watching as a group of recruits from the Metropolitan Police Academy practiced nearby. They moved with military precision and obvious strength. One of them, a tall blonde woman who looked like she could have been a professional athlete, was demonstrating throws with technical perfection. "That's Jennifer Walsh," one of the organizers mentioned to Officer Davis. "Former college wrestling champion. She's won this competition 2 years in a row." Sarah overheard the comment and studied Walsh more closely. The woman moved with confidence and skill that spoke of years of elite-level training. This was going to be very different from demonstrating techniques for her classmates back at the academy. As the day progressed through various preliminary events, Sarah performed well but didn't dominate. Her written test scores were excellent, and she held her own in the physical fitness challenges, but she wasn't the standout performer she had become accustomed to being. During lunch break, she sat with her academy teammates, trying to process the higher level of competition. "Everyone here is really good," she said to Jake, who was competing in scenario-based problem-solving. "Yeah, but you're really good too," Jake replied. "Don't let the stage intimidate you. You've got skills that most of these people have never seen before." The final event of the day was the multiple opponent demonstration. Sarah watched as earlier competitors faced their challenges. Some performed well, others struggled with the pace and complexity. Jennifer Walsh went immediately before Sarah and moved through her 5 opponents with impressive efficiency and control. As Sarah's name was called, she walked to the center of the large mat. Around the perimeter, instructors and recruits from all 12 academies watched. Her 5 opponents were selected from different academies, all experienced recruits who had volunteered to help test the competitors. The first opponent was a medium-built man who approached with standard academy defensive tactics. Sarah recognized his style immediately and adapted her response accordingly, using a combination of redirection and leverage to control the engagement quickly and safely. The second opponent was larger and tried to use his size advantage more aggressively. Sarah flowed around his attacks, using his momentum against him in ways that drew surprised murmurs from the watching crowd. By the third opponent, Sarah had found her rhythm completely. She was no longer thinking about techniques or trying to remember her training. She was simply responding, flowing like water around obstacles, redirecting force, and maintaining control with what looked like effortless grace. The fourth and fifth opponents came in rapid succession, testing her stamina and ability to adapt to different fighting styles under fatigue. But Sarah felt stronger, not weaker, as the demonstration continued. Each engagement built her confidence and seemed to unlock more of her natural abilities. When it was over, the gymnasium was completely silent for a moment before erupting in applause. Sarah stood in the center of the mat, breathing hard, but feeling more alive than she ever had. She had done it. Not just survived, but excelled. The small-town girl who had been dismissed as too weak for police work had just demonstrated skills that impressed some of the best instructors and recruits in the region. But as she looked around at the faces of her competitors and instructors, Sarah realized something important. This wasn't really about proving herself anymore. It was about showing what was possible when someone combined natural ability with dedicated training and the courage to pursue their dreams despite doubt from others. The real test was over, but in many ways, Sarah's journey was just beginning. The applause died down slowly as Sarah caught her breath in the center of the mat. She had just completed the multiple opponent demonstration, but she could see from the judges' expressions that something unusual was happening. The head judge, Captain Morrison from the state police, was conferring quietly with the other officials. Officer Davis approached Sarah with a puzzled expression. "That was incredible, Martinez, but I think they're discussing something about the scoring." Captain Morrison stepped forward and addressed the gathered crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've just witnessed an exceptional demonstration. However, the judges have a concern about the time parameters of the final challenge." Sarah's heart sank. Had she somehow broken a rule? Had her performance been disqualified on a technicality? "The standard protocol," Morrison continued, "calls for each competitor to face 5 opponents with 30-second rest periods between engagements. Due to the efficiency of Recruit Martinez's performance, her total engagement time was significantly shorter than the minimum duration we use for scoring purposes." The crowd murmured in confusion. Sarah felt a knot form in her stomach. Morrison raised his hand for silence. "Therefore, the judging panel has decided to offer Recruit Martinez an opportunity to demonstrate her abilities under a more challenging scenario, if she's willing to accept." Officer Davis stepped closer to Sarah. "You don't have to do anything else, Martinez. You've already proven yourself beyond any doubt." But Sarah was curious now. "What kind of scenario, sir?" Captain Morrison smiled. "We'd like to see how you handle all 5 opponents at the same time, rather than in sequence. It's completely voluntary and won't affect your official scoring, but it would give us a better sense of your capabilities under maximum pressure." The gymnasium erupted in excited chatter. This was unprecedented. No recruit in the history of the inter-academy competition had ever faced all 5 opponents simultaneously. It was exactly the kind of scenario that might occur in real police work, but it was considered too dangerous for training demonstrations. Sarah looked at the 5 recruits who had served as her opponents. They were all bigger than her, all skilled, and all looking at her with expressions ranging from respect to challenge. Taking them all on at once would be completely different from facing them one at a time. Jennifer Walsh, the previous champion, approached Sarah. "You don't have anything left to prove," she said quietly. "That demonstration you just gave was better than anything I've ever seen. Don't risk getting hurt for show." Sarah appreciated the advice, but as she stood there, she thought about her entire journey. From the small girl in Arizona who dreamed of being a police officer, to the dismissed recruit at the academy, to this moment when she had the chance to demonstrate something that might change how people thought about what was possible. "I'll do it," Sarah said loudly enough for Captain Morrison to hear. The crowd noise intensified. Some people looked excited, others concerned. Officer Davis grabbed her arm. "Sarah, this is different from anything you've trained for. 5 experienced fighters at once. That's not a demonstration anymore, that's a real fight." "I know," Sarah replied. "But I also know I can handle it, and I think it's important to show what proper training and technique can accomplish." Captain Morrison nodded approvingly. "Very well. We'll give you 10 minutes to prepare, and then we'll set up the scenario. The rules are simple. Demonstrate control and defensive tactics against multiple opponents until the judges call a stop. The focus is on technique and safety, not on knocking anyone out." During the preparation period, Sarah found a quiet corner of the facility to center herself. She closed her eyes and went through the meditation exercises Master Chen had taught her years ago. She visualized the upcoming scenario, imagining the flow of movement, the positioning, the timing that would be required. Master Chen's voice echoed in her memory. "When facing many opponents, you must become like wind. Wind cannot be caught, cannot be held, cannot be stopped. It touches everything but commits to nothing until the perfect moment." She thought about water flowing around rocks, about using opponents' positions against each other, about maintaining constant movement to prevent being surrounded. This wasn't about fighting 5 people simultaneously. It was about fighting one person at a time while 4 others happened to be nearby. When the 10 minutes were up, Sarah walked back to the center of the mat. The 5 recruits were positioned around the perimeter, waiting for the signal to begin. The entire gymnasium had gone silent, except for the sound of footsteps and breathing. Captain Morrison looked at Sarah one final time. "Last chance to change your mind, Recruit Martinez." Sarah shook her head. "I'm ready, sir." "Begin!" The 5 recruits moved toward her from different angles, trying to coordinate their approach to prevent her from escaping the center of the mat. But Sarah had anticipated this strategy. Instead of waiting for them to close in, she immediately moved toward the weakest point in their formation, the gap between the 2 largest opponents. As she approached that gap, the 2 recruits moved to close it, but Sarah had already committed to a different plan. She feinted toward the gap, causing both men to shift their positions, then pivoted sharply and moved toward the smaller opening that their movement had created. The beauty of her strategy became apparent to the watching crowd immediately. By constantly moving and forcing the opponents to react to her positioning, Sarah was controlling the pace and flow of the entire encounter. Instead of 5 people attacking one, it became one person dictating how 5 people moved. When the first recruit reached her, Sarah used his momentum to redirect him into the path of a second attacker, creating a momentary collision that took both of them out of the immediate action. She flowed around a third opponent's grab attempt, using his extended arm as a pivot point to change direction completely. The 4th and 5th recruits tried to coordinate a pincer movement, but Sarah's footwork was too fluid. She moved in circles and figure 8s, never staying in one place long enough to be cornered, always using one opponent's position to shield her from another. After 2 minutes of this dynamic chess match, something interesting happened. The 5 recruits began to get in each other's way more than they were threatening Sarah. Their attempts to coordinate became confused. They started bumping into each other, blocking each other's approaches, and generally creating more obstacles for themselves than for their target. Sarah recognized the shift and began to take more aggressive action. When one recruit overcommitted to a grab attempt, she used a gentle redirection technique to send him stumbling into another opponent. When 2 others tried to approach from opposite sides simultaneously, she moved at just the right moment to cause them to collide with each other. The watching crowd was witnessing something unprecedented. Sarah wasn't just defending herself against 5 opponents. She was orchestrating their movements like a conductor leading an orchestra. Every action she took caused multiple reactions that she had anticipated and planned for. By the 4th minute, the 5 recruits were clearly exhausted and frustrated. They had expended enormous energy trying to catch someone who seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Meanwhile, Sarah appeared to be gaining strength and confidence as the demonstration continued. Captain Morrison was about to call a halt to the exercise when Sarah did something that no one expected. Instead of continuing her defensive flow, she suddenly shifted to controlled offensive action. Moving with speed that surprised everyone, including her opponents, Sarah executed a series of precise techniques that left all 5 recruits on the ground in controlled holds within 15 seconds. Not hurt, not injured, but completely neutralized and unable to continue. The gymnasium erupted in the loudest applause Sarah had ever heard. Recruits from all 12 academies were on their feet, cheering and shouting. Even the judges looked stunned by what they had witnessed. As Sarah helped her opponents to their feet, each of them shook her hand with obvious respect. "That was incredible," said the largest recruit, a former college football player named Marcus. "I've never seen anything like it. How did you do that?" "Honestly," Sarah replied, still catching her breath, "I'm not entirely sure. It felt like everything I've ever learned just came together at once." Captain Morrison approached with the other judges. "Recruit Martinez, in 30 years of law enforcement and training, I have never seen a demonstration like that. You didn't just handle 5 opponents. You controlled them completely." Officer Davis looked proud but also amazed. "Sarah, where did that come from? Some of those techniques weren't anything we've taught at the academy." Sarah thought about how to answer. "It was everything, sir. The academy training, the martial arts I studied as a kid, but mostly it was just trusting in the preparation and letting my instincts guide me." Jennifer Walsh, the former champion, was among the first to congratulate Sarah personally. "You've raised the bar for all of us," she said sincerely. "That wasn't just superior technique, that was artistry." As the formal competition concluded and awards were presented, Sarah found herself surrounded by instructors and recruits from other academies wanting to learn from her. She was invited to guest teach at several facilities and offered advanced training opportunities she had never imagined possible. But the most meaningful moment came when she called her parents that evening. "We saw the video online," her father said, his voice thick with emotion. "Sarah, we owe you an apology. We should have believed in you from the beginning." "You don't owe me anything, Dad," Sarah replied. "You taught me to work hard and never give up. That's what made today possible." "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," her mother added. "Not just for winning, but for proving that following your dreams was the right choice all along." 3 months later, Sarah graduated from the police academy at the top of her class. She was offered positions with multiple law enforcement agencies, including several that specifically wanted her to help develop their defensive tactics training programs. She chose to return to her home state, joining a police department that served communities similar to the small town where she had grown up. Her first assignment was as a patrol officer, but she was also asked to assist with training new recruits and developing community outreach programs. On her first day in uniform, Sarah drove past the auto repair shop where her father still worked. He was standing outside talking to a customer when he saw her patrol car. The pride on his face was unmistakable. That evening, Sarah called Master Chen to tell him about her first day as a police officer. "I always knew you would find your path," the old man said gently. "But tell me, what did you learn about yourself through all of this?" Sarah thought carefully about the question. "I learned that being underestimated can be an advantage if you don't let it define you. I learned that real strength isn't about size or power. It's about understanding yourself and trusting your training. And I learned that proving yourself to others is less important than believing in yourself." "Wise words," Master Chen replied. "But what will you do with this knowledge now?" Sarah looked out her apartment window at the small city she now served and protected. "I'm going to use it to help other people who feel like they're too small, too weak, or too different to pursue their dreams. I'm going to show them that with proper preparation and determination, you can face any challenge." Years later, Sarah's story became legendary in law enforcement training circles. The video of her demonstration was used in academies across the country to illustrate principles of technique over force, preparation over size, and confidence over doubt. She established a program that brought martial arts principles into police training, focusing on de-escalation, control techniques, and the mental discipline required for effective law enforcement. Hundreds of officers learned from her methods, and crime rates in communities using her training protocols showed significant improvement. But Sarah never forgot the most important lesson from her journey. The real victory wasn't in defeating 5 opponents at once or earning recognition from her peers. The real victory was in proving to herself and others that anyone with enough determination, proper training, and unwavering belief in their goals could overcome any obstacle, no matter how impossible it might seem. From a small-town girl dismissed as too weak for police work to a nationally recognized law enforcement trainer, Sarah's story became a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of never letting others' limitations define your own possibilities. The young woman, who had once been underestimated because of her size, had grown into a leader who helped others discover their own hidden strengths. And in communities across the country, police officers trained in her methods were proving every day that true strength comes not from intimidation or force, but from skill, wisdom, and the courage to do what's right regardless of the odds.